is The Opinions, a show that brings you a mix of voices from New York Times Opinion. You've heard the news. Here's what to make of it.
I think right now, anchovies are having a moment, both in the culinary world and culturally. My name is Christopher Beckman, and I'm an archaeologist working primarily in the Middle East. But I've gotten a little sidetracked the last number of years on anchovies. And I wrote a book called A Twist in the Tale, How the Humble Anchovy Flavored Western Cuisine. I think people are getting very excited right now about anchovies because as we move towards a more plant-forward future, anchovies have an incredible role to play in this new chapter in how we feed ourselves. I'm seeing a number of chefs consistently talking about them. For instance, Alison Roman talks about an anchovy almost every week.
A beautiful, perfect roast chicken that's been slathered in anchovy butter with a hyper-acidic...
Nigella Lawson had a whole chapter devoted to anchovies in her last book. Melissa Clark of the New York Times, I always call her the anchovy queen.
1, 2, 3 gorgeous oil-packed anchovies.
And then when you bring in the social media, when you bring in the new companies like Fishwife.
Fishwife makes tinned fish for hot girls.
A1 packaging.
These companies that are presenting anchovies to a younger generation without kind of the baggage of the past. Rumor has it that even Kamala Harris likes anchovies on her pizza, which I think bodes well for the whole nation. They are a way to bring a dose of flavor and satisfying taste to plants and grains and vegetables of all different kinds. And this is something anchovies have been doing for 2,000 years. They go back all the way to ancient Rome when they seasoned almost everything the Romans ate. And the form in which they were used was fish sauce, what the Romans called garum. And from the Roman era, we see it pop up throughout European history. In France, they became the flavor enhancer of French sauces in the 17 and 1800s. Across the English Channel in Britain, they were using it in ketchup. And nobody's embraced anchovies in Europe quite like the Italians, where anchovies never went out of fashion. When we talk about what makes anchovies so special, what we're really talking about is the taste of umami. And for most of our history, there were 4 accepted tastes and flavors. There was basically sweet, sour, bitter, and salty. But in 1908, a very astute Japanese chemist named Ikeda, he hypothesized there was a 5th proteiny, mushroomy, savory taste. Well, after a lot of chemical experiments and reductions, he basically isolated glutamate, which we now know and call umami. And this is what makes anchovies so special, because they are absolutely packed to the gills with umami. My interest in anchovies really took off when I was younger, living in LA in my 20s, flat broke. And I would often eat very, very simple food, ramen, simple pastas with tomato and sauce. And basically, to spruce up the tomato sauce, I would add an anchovy. And one of the interesting things I noticed was that if I had a friend or two over for dinner, and I told them at the end of the dinner that there was anchovy in it, I could see their eyes glazing over. And if I mentioned before dinner, literally a friend or two would just say, no, thanks, I'm not that hungry. So I realized very early on, there's something very unique about anchovies in that they bring immense flavor to our food, but at the same time, they're loathed by half the population. I think it goes back to the very, very bland diets we tend to give children in the West. Because if you look at what children in Asia eat, they're all growing up, eating anchovies on a daily basis in the form of fish sauce, either dried fish or fresh anchovies. In addition, I think part of the reason why so many people have a bad experience with anchovies is their first experience was as anchovy pizza. And in the US, traditionally, the anchovy pizzas have been terrible. Usually it's a giant bulk tin of anchovies, the lowest quality, sitting in the back of the pizzeria. It's been open for months. Then they're lazily thrown on the pizza and it's served. And it's a hot mess, a hot, salty mess. And it turns people off for decades. If there's an anchovy skeptic out there who wants to try anchovies for the first time and is quite nervous, my suggestion is to saute an anchovy with a little garlic and chili pepper and olive oil. And this trifecta, this golden trifecta of flavor, becomes a background note that can season any vegetable, any pulse, any grain. You can literally add them and it will reside in the background and people won't even know they're there, but they'll be working their wonders.
If you like this show, follow it on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. This show is produced by Derek Arthur, Sophia Alvarez-Boyd, Vishaka Durba, Phoebe Lett, Christina Samuelewski, and Jillian Weinberger. It's edited by Kari Pitkin, Allison Bruzek, and Annie Rose Strasser. Engineering, mixing, and original music by Isaac Jones, Sonia Herrero, Pat McCusker, Carol Saburo, and Afim Shapiro. Additional music by Amin Sahota. The fact-check team is Kate Sinclair, Mary Marge Locker, and Michelle Harris. Audience strategy by Shannon Busta, Christina Samuelewski, and Adrian Rivera. The executive producer of Times Opinion Audio is Annie Rose Strasser.